Hi, this is Ron Rhodes here. Going to share with you a topper teaching tidbit. So first, let me share my screen with you, and then for you to see the whole screen, I'll turn off my videos here real quick, and we should be going. So this tidbit is about using initial student questionnaires to advance engagement and learning. And of course, a little disclaimer here, all the content here is mine and mine alone. It's not necessarily endorsed by WKU or any other institution or cult, gang, or motley group of characters that I've ever belonged to or ever been kicked out of. So what is an initial student questionnaire? It's basically a Word document that you send to your students in the very first week of classes. You ask them to fill it out. You actually give them points to fill it out. As we know, we need to incentivize our students to complete things. It's usually 4 to 5 pages. It's very easy for them to fill out, typically only 10 to 20 minutes, but it helps give you a lot of information. And why go to all this trouble? Why gather all this information from students? Well, first and foremost, to show that you care. When you show interest in students, the students know that you care about them, and that certainly incentivizes their engagement in class and their participation in class. Also, obtaining their phone number is very important. I find that especially early on in a semester, the first week, the second week, the third week, if a student has not shown up to class, I like to text them. Now, sometimes I can do that during the class, like if people are meeting in teams, I've got an extra minute or so, I can just text them and say, hey, I hear you're not here today. Is everything okay? You kind of freak the student out, of course. Otherwise, you do it after class and the like. And most of the time, you'll get a response, you get an excuse, but they know that you're watching, they know that you care when that is the case, and you know that you care that they are in class. Yeah. Third reason, and really the original reason I did this, was to build better teams. I do a lot of teamwork in classes, typically teams of 4 students. If they're in a classroom, I have 2 sitting in front, 2 sitting right behind them, so that 2 of them can turn their chairs. They can confer better that way. And I'm trying to match teams. One is I'm trying to make teams even. I don't want to put all the smart, high GPA students with, and then low GPA students. That would be unfair. Uh, I'm also matching them by fields of study. Now, this is especially true for freshmen. A lot of times they don't know who is in their major. You can connect them. You really can't connect them by GPA a lot at that time. You can also take into account outside interest, whether they're in Greek life or not, any clubs they're involved in. And very important, are they an introvert or an extrovert, or do they have high or low social or presentation anxiety? I try to pair those together, and that way they can, especially because there's a lot of presentations in my class, a lot of class discussion, they can encourage each other that way to participate. And as you know, when you build teams, a lot of times the best teams function when you have diverse personalities associated with it. So matching teams, very important. Another big reason is to identify students that have presentation anxiety. And if you do that, you can actually, like in your seating chart, if you're in a classroom, or even in a chart if you're doing Zoom sessions, you could reach out to a student. Perhaps they are working in a team, or the teams are finishing up. You can go up to a student and say, you know, I'd like to call on you to answer this question. Do you think you'd be able to do it? Especially someone who's got severe presentation anxiety. You could review the answer with them, make sure they got it right, and kind of get them, foster them in the standpoint of getting over presentation anxiety. As we know, about 40% of students in college have some type of either severe or very strong presentation anxiety. Most of them actually identify that they have some form of presentation anxiety. Another big one, especially in our department, is to keep better track of our students. So our goal is to make sure that our students graduate and get good jobs. And To do that, we need to kind of keep track of what they're doing. Do they have an internship? Very important for a lot of careers to have good internships. Do they have it? Have we connected them with a mentor in the profession? Uh, have they found a job? We can take note of all of that here on the screen. We can also keep track of their GPA. Very useful from one semester to the next semester. You can track if somebody's GPA rises, you can send them a congratulatory email, their cumulative GPA. Let's say you had a great semester, wonderful. That's very powerful. If it falls, you might want to schedule a one-on-one call with them. Say, hey, I noticed, you didn't do well last semester. What happened? All right, how are we going to fix that going forward? Getting their email address really helps you reach out to them. Identifying their majors and minors and certificates. I usually do this in separate columns, by the way, just from the standpoint of ease of sorting them. But that's very useful because then you can identify uh, students who maybe should have taken a certificate that they have not. Hometown, a lot of people sometimes connect with other people in hometown. I don't like to connect necessarily students with each other from that basis, but a lot of them like to return to hometowns in some way. And knowing that is a good idea. And then you can put in notes of conversations. A lot of other fields here. When are they graduating? The year and month, so you can sort by that. Their post-graduation email addresses. That way you could just kind of move all your graduates to a separate page on your spreadsheet. Gender, uh, for example, in my major, we have a certificate that students do, certified financial planners, and every year we have to report how many students are in our major, and we have to break them out by gender and also by the ethnicity. Uh, so for purposes of what the CFP board requires us to do, we also keep track of field trips that they've been undertaken or have been awarded. We may provide financial support for those field trips, and we don't want to make sure that one student gets all the field trips. We want to spread those out. And how many credit hours have they accumulated? And that helps us keep track of where they are in the major. Now, some of this information in our spreadsheet, we actually take from TopNet reports. We order those up and then update our spreadsheet every semester. But other of that information can become right from the student questionnaires. Probably the biggest thing is once you've got all this information about the students, and I'll go through the information shortly that we gather, some of the additional, you can identify specific student concerns that way. You can schedule meetings with the students. So I have found, especially here uh, with doing online classes, that I'm not as connected to the students as I usually am because I'm usually on campus most of the time, but now I'm not. So I can actually, especially for freshmen, I can have them schedule an appointment with me the second or third week of class for 10 minutes, and very easy to do versus Calendly, which I'm sure there'll be another instruction about. Very easy program to do. You don't have to waste a lot of times with emails back and forth, scheduling conferences. They're automatically scheduled. You can set them up, connect with your calendar, like your Outlook calendar, and you can also set up Zoom meetings that way. So they're automatically set up for you that way. Um, I I actually incentivize those meetings. So I'll say these are required meetings. So 1% of your grade goes to it. And that way you make sure students participate. You can also identify problems with groups or teams. So, I always like to ask, how is your team working out? Things like that. Ask open-ended questions. If you spot issues that with students procrastinating, like getting their assignments in at the very last minute or late, or problems with attendance or tardiness or sleepiness, you can say that and then kind of counsel them about getting adequate sleep and consistent sleep times. And time management, and of course, all the other things that we as educators can counsel students on to get them to be better students and have better habits. And of course, identifying problems that might result in referrals to the counseling center or academic advisors involving them, or tutors, making sure students connect with tutors and get a tutor when it's appropriate, going to the career center, the writing center, math lab, whatever, basically taking all of our resources on campus and better connecting our students to them. Very important. A lot of students, especially freshmen, do not join as many clubs as they should. We should be actually having all students try to join 2 or 3 clubs or organizations. during the first 5 weeks that they are on campus. That helps connect them with the university. Joining an academic club obviously is very important, especially for students in your major where you have an academic club. You want to encourage them to go. I encourage them to go to some of the leadership sessions we have, like Dynamic Leadership. It's a great program. Peak events here in the Gordon Ford College of Business and professional education events, mock interviews that might be held. We can encourage students to go to, obviously, guest speakers that are on campus and things of that nature. And encourage students to go to job fairs, even freshmen, even if they're not looking for an internship or a job. Ask them to go and ask employers what they're looking for. And by going to a job fair, when they have to go for real, they're going to be a lot more at ease of that. They're going to know what to expect. I do a lot of counseling with students about internships and jobs and finding jobs, and especially reverse networking, or it's called the informational interview, and how to do that process and how to find jobs that, what are the best websites to go to? What are the best resources? How do you research a firm? How do you research an individual? How do you use LinkedIn? All of those things. And you can also have discuss any minors or certificates that they might have, or even if they unsure about the major, you can have those type of conversations, especially if you involve some of the personality tests that you can find at the Career Center for them, get them involved in that, make sure that they're on the right path so they don't get to their junior or senior year and figure out that they should have changed their major. Another great thing is reviewing their resume or getting them to the Career Center to have their resume reviewed by the professionals there, and asking for feedback. A lot of times at the end of these meetings, what ideas do you have that might improve how the class is designed, how the instruction's going, something along those lines. So a lot of things that you can do with this information. Let's kind of go through real quick what the information is that when asking. Basically, the first part is, of course, please submit this via Blackboard. That way you always have it right there. You can pull it up at any time. The assignment's worth 10 points, all right? And we want their name, we want their nickname or their first name, their cell phone number, again, very important, so you can reach out to them. When are they going to graduate? That's very important. Just by giving them all the dates and having them check, it's a lot easier for them than writing in the dates. Of course, you could have a couple comical type entries here, all right? Majors and minors, again, you could list out a lot of the common majors and minors that your students who are taking your classes might be involved in. This could be a longer list or a shorter list as appropriate. And obviously they could fill out others here if they have any others that aren't listed in your form. Cumulative GPA to date, I think you need to specify what you're going to use that. You're not going to use that to say, hey, this is a bad student, a good, but you're going to use it to form teams, all right? And that's really going to help you out down the road. And again, relating to careers, have you done an internship? If so, where did you do that? Nice to keep track of that, because then you can also refer future students to a firm, especially if you have notes that the internship experience was good, whether it's an internship for credit or just an internship in which they got paid, did a summer internship for no credit. Ask them how they feel about their career path. A lot of times they'll say, I'm uncertain, and you know that you can have a conversation about that. Have they lined up an internship or a job for following graduation? And if so, where? And if they haven't, that's something that you can help them tackle with later. If you're holding in-person classes, I always like to ask, where do they want to sit? Now, a lot of people really need to sit in the front row, they prefer the front 2 to 3 rows. You do have students who like to be in the back, and sometimes those are not always the best students, so you have to kind of watch grouping students in the back when you do this. But I do try to accommodate this, especially for those who say, I really need to sit in the front row. And they may not have identified through SARC that they need to do that, but it's a nice accommodation. If someone's attending via Zoom, sometimes you have classrooms that are set aside for that. You kind of want to maybe know who's going to be in the classroom, or if they're just going to attend from a different location. Introvert or extrovert? I like to give a description of this. What is these kind of range of extroversion and range of introversion and kind of let them check one of these. And also ask them social anxiety and presentation anxiety and actually describe what each of those are. Do they have none? Or is it modest, moderate, strong, or severe? And they can comment further on that. And you have a lot of people who will, especially on presentation anxiety, identify as moderate, strong, or severe. Social anxiety, yeah, probably about 30–40% of our students, perhaps more on the freshman side, less on the senior side for that. What activities are they involved in? Nice to know. It might help you connect in terms of building teams. If they're involved in a sports team, it'd be nice to know that. Do they work? And if so, how many hours? Because if you're finding that a student is not doing well in a class or is sleepy and you see that they're working 40 hours a week, you probably need to say, hey, let's talk about your schedule, your weekly schedule, and what can you do to hopefully free up some time so you can get more sleep or work on your assignments more. Are there any events that you may know about that might cause you to miss any classes? Could be anything that comes up. A lot of students will say, well, you know what, my father's not doing well, or my mother's not doing well health-wise and could pass away or something. You kind of know that in advance sometimes. And of course, people will identify if they're in a sports team, there might be some accommodations. There'll be a letter that you get, of course, as well. Being on time to class is important because I kind of specify what all the reasons for that. Is there any reason that might cause you to be tardy to class? This is really, very few people would say there's a reason to be tardy, but on occasion I've had somebody say, well, I'm coming all the way from the science lab and that class goes right to the end of class and it's a long walk, and you know that you can make a note on your seating chart or something along those lines. And then I want to make sure that students get adequate sleep. So I'm kind of prompting them. There's a little bit of education that goes on during classes on the necessity for getting enough sleep and consistent sleep. And then some more questions. Is there anything that's going to prevent you from successful interactive discussions, working in groups, team presentations, of which you should be aware, other than the social anxiety or presentation anxiety that they previously discussed? Is there anything not discussed brief that might impair their ability to undertake the coursework in this class? Typically, I don't get any real big responses to these questions, but I think it's nice to ask them. And on those rare occasions where you do get an answer, it may be something you can address right at the beginning of a class, as opposed to having a problem and you identify it 5 weeks later or by midterm. Is there anything else you want to make us aware of as we commence this term? And a lot of times you'll find some answers there. So this is basically the layout of the questionnaire. It is a Word document. I hope that CITL will share that with you. If not, please email me. I always put a little thank you for completing the questionnaire there. And for you, thanks for watching. And again, if you have any email on questions, comments, or suggestions about this, please email me and be happy to respond to you. Thank you.